The Real Wargamer here. I'm going to be talking about RAID, Commando Operations in the 20th Century, 1977 Strategy and Tactics magazine game. I am going to be talking about why this did not come through with what I'm looking for right now. So basically, I'm going to be talking about. I am going to be talking about how this falls short. Actually, I think falls well short of what I was looking for right now. But before I do that, let me say something positive about the game, because there are still aspects of the design that I like. So this is, the setting and theme. So with respect to setting and theme, Commando Operations 20th Century, it's good with respect to, if you're looking for the setting and the theme, I think that I presume it works. So the first scenario is Entebbe. Then we have scenario number 2, Dawn Raid. An air mobile platoon executes a dawn raid on a guerrilla base. It sounds very interesting. Scenario number 3, the Son Tay Raid. General situation in Elite Green Beret. This is obviously the Vietnamese operation, historical operation. So an Elite Green Beret assault force landed by helicopter at Son Tay Prison near Hanoi, North Vietnam. Their mission was to rescue 61 American POWs who, unknown to the raiders, had been moved to another prison before the raid. There was only a group of guards at the prison when the raiders arrived. And then you have scenario number 4 called Convoy Ambush. A small truck convoy is ambushed by a guerrilla force while on a resupply mission. Scenario number 5, Trigino, or Trigino, maybe it's Trigino Aqueduct in Italy, 1941. British paratroopers land near an aqueduct in an attempt to destroy it and withdraw to the coast, where they are to be picked up by naval craft. And number 6, Litiani River, 1941. Units of number 11 Commando Assault Forces of the Vichy French 22nd Tirailleurs from Algeria in an attempt to capture the redoubt and bridge at Kafra Bada on the Litiani River during the Allied Vichy battle for Syria. And number 7, Assault on South. I thought there were 6 scenarios. But number 7, Assault on South Vagso Island, December 1942. A British commando unit attacks a Norwegian fishing complex that is in German hands to prevent the making of explosive materials from the fishing byproducts. And then number 8, the sweep. Okay, 8 scenarios. And let me see. The sweep. A guerrilla force has been trapped between 3 American platoons. The Americans are attempting to clear the area of guerrillas and are bent on destroying the entire enemy force with as few American casualties as possible. So actually, I guess I can't say that. Out of 8 scenarios, you might say, how do you tell so it's a split between historical and hypothetical scenarios. And let me see, semi or auto. Oh yeah, that's auto. To figure out the time for the hypothetical scenarios, when they're supposed to what historical period it's supposed to represent, I'm looking at the equipment and the personal weapons, right? So M203, that's definitely not World War II, and auto personnel weapons, so that would not be World War II. Auto line, probably not. Okay, so I think in general, Yeah. In general, the hypothetical are not World War II. And so the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 historical scenarios, 3 of those are World War II. Okay. Now I'm going to look at as making your own scenarios that I never bothered to look at, because maybe this will answer some of my questions. Players may revise any of the scenarios given in the game any way they wish, using the optional rules. Optional rules? I just play with them all. What do they call optional rules? They probably call optional rules that aren't considered optional at all. Vehicles and weapons? Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting to call them optional. They may also make up their own scenarios. Some ideas are actions involving the Rhodesians and South Africans against black guerrillas, the Bay of Pigs invasion attempt in Cuba, and many others. Keep in mind that none of the historical scenarios is all that accurate as far as numbers of men and pieces of equipment in a particular action are concerned. They are merely attempts to give the players a general idea of how such operations were conducted. On that basis, players may recreate any raid action they can come up with, historical or otherwise. Players may also wish to simulate actions that took place at night as well as... Yeah, see, this isn't... No, this does not... The first paragraph under making your own scenarios does not address what I'm thinking of. All right, so... So what I was thinking from my few attempts to play is that this is maybe more interesting when you have basically you have a lopsided scenario, lopsided situation, where you have two forces. One is clearly superior than the other. So for that, for the setting and the theme presented, I can see maybe why that would be worth it to play. But what I'm finding when I put, again, to review, what I was looking for is a near future small unit combat action game to play, to get into fairly quickly, that again has credible simulation value. So I thought taking raid and making two top line forces, I don't know, I thought that would be interesting, and it's not turning out to be interesting at all, because this is what I'm finding. The game uses a simple 6-sided die, 50-50 chance for who goes first in both direct fire and movement phase. That's actually okay by itself. Okay, so what's the result? The result is, as these equal top-line forces make contact, it's a chance it's down to chance who's going to be able to open up first. Using this example, every single unit, and this is what you would expect, this is what I would expect, every unit is in, other than clear terrain, every unit is in cover, and that's what you would expect. So units are in cover, they're making contact, and then it comes down to, because there is no movement and fire or anything like that, you're going to move and make contact in one turn, because movement's after shooting, and then earlier in the next turn, the following turn, it's going to be a 50-50 die roll who opens up first. So with the high, again, with what seems to be fairly high casualty rates, it's not unusual for the first unit to receive fire to take 2 or 3 casualties. And what did we have? We had, the first unit, I think both of these, 1 and 2. Not necessarily a problem here. These guys made contact, but they did as well. First casualties over here on this side of this wood line, is 2 casualties here, 1 casualty there. Not outrageous necessarily, but I still have to figure time scale, and I still have to figure, were these ambushes? But they weren't ambushes. They were not ambushes. So I don't know how you can. I don't know how you can presume ambush. No, you can't. 2-minute turns. This was a movement to contact. Period. So, anyways, it's not really an ambush, and so, Well, anyways, I'm not sure casualties would actually be that high. Well, again, it's the time scale. But okay, given the casualties. So what I'm getting at is, let's put both forces in medium. Here. Let's put both forces in medium terrain. Just make it even. The first unit is going to be full strength at 4, and is going to see a fire. I mean, there is. Oh, by the way, they're both sides are auto, so I'm going to shift 1 left. So then we're even on this, we're on this column. So first of all, you're automatically going to get an effect. You're automatically going to get an effect. Again, I mean, that's kind of, that could really be discussed. But anyways, now let's be clear about one thing. Suppression is kind of mild in these rules. Suppression automatically comes off later in the same turn. So, I mean, that's actually fairly mild. We lost pressure markers which have been imposed on units as a result of fire. That's the same turn. 2-minute turns. So this is really, I mean, you can call it suppression, but it's not, it's just not very heavy suppression. It's kind of an immediate suppression. Anyways, so that's not too drastic. But then, I mean, on this column, you're rolling a 3 or better to cause casualties. And if you roll a 6, you're causing 3 casualties. You roll a 4 or a 5, you're causing 2 casualties. So let's just say that if you cause 2 casualties, then the enemy is returning fire on the 2 column left 1 for auto. And yeah, see, they automatically drop. 50% chance of causing 1 casualty, and there's still an 18% chance of causing nothing. That's my point about the 2 forces meet. It is completely random who fires first. It is very common to get 2 or 3 casualties. Well, yeah, there's a 50% chance. There's a 50% chance of getting 2 or more casualties. So then when that targeted unit fires back, it drops way down in capability. So the point being not the combat modeling. That's not what I'm focusing on here, although I think that we could debate that, but what I'm getting at is the interesting choices. With 2 forces that are the same, that is absolutely what it comes down to. And that's just frankly not interesting. And I'm going to talk about that too, because that's a change for me. It's not interesting. I mean, what do you do? I mean, first it's like you use terrain. Well, both sides are using terrain. Then what? Use movement. Well, both sides are using movement. It just doesn't break one way or the other. In an interesting way. The choices just aren't there. So when I say the choices aren't there to make it interesting, and by the way, to be fair to the design, which goes back to the commando operations idea as well, is that, okay, I'm sure you want to get to a mixture of weapons, indirect fire, and vehicles. That's automatically going to open up more decisions. But still, when let me get back to what I started with originally in this video. It's like, what am I looking for right now? I am, and I know it's probably It's fairly high demand, but I'm looking for a game that's interesting at the basic level. The basic level would be personnel units against personnel units without a lot of difference, if not identical forces. Is it interesting there? And clearly in this design, I don't think it is. You add the other stuff, okay, maybe it is. Well, you add the other stuff and you accept and get into the theme and setting of the rules, which I think I mentioned before. I'm not interested in asymmetric actions. Okay. So what could there be? Really quickly, I'll say, because I'm saying there are not interesting choices there. What could there be? This is not going to be that surprising from what I've mentioned what I've mentioned in the past. Again, up and down posture, don't have that here. Rate of fire, don't have that here. And decisions about fields of fire, don't have that here. Basically none of that is here. And you could have up and down posture and hiding, like deliberately hiding. So there are things. And not to mention, of course, the first one, probably the very, very, very first one. And I do think it is a player choice, because if you make every single fire team unit here an individual unit with individual and unique capabilities, like in the real world, then it becomes interesting. It's like, where do I put my A teams? Where do I put my B teams? Where do I put my C teams? And what do I do with my D teams? And I mean those as grades from higher to lower. Not to mention leaders, which, and again, I'm not saying leaders have to be accounted for as separate counters, but leadership and leaders could still be factored into the design, even if at this level maybe the leader is just another kind of individual unit. Okay. Now, let me conclude this. Clearly, I've kind of taught myself here that I guess Wargamer's expectations and preferences, I guess they change. I've only been wargaming regularly for a handful of years here. I played this a couple years ago. I had a lot of fun. I thought it was great. But when I think back, it was only a couple years ago that I played. Well, it's not a couple. I guess it was, what was it? 3 or 4 years ago? Wait a minute. I talked about that printout. Nope, 3 years ago. Yep, 3 years ago. So, yeah, about 3 years ago I played this. Great fun. But now that I think back, 3 years, I don't think in 3 years ago I was thinking about any of the things that I see as missing now. I don't even think I was thinking about those things. So things change. A wargamer's preferences and expectations can change. Yeah. So now I see these things as clearly missing. Again, from what? From my expectations and based on my preferences now, which I guess have changed.